How are you doing? Backyard book reading. Chapter 5. Oblonsky had done well at school thanks to his natural abilities, but he was lazy and up to all sorts of mischief, and that was why he had come out near the bottom of his class. But notwithstanding his life of dissipation, his rather low rank, and his not very advanced age, he occupied a distinguished and well-paid post as head of one of the Moscow government offices. He had obtained this post through his sister Anna's husband, Alexei Alexandrovich Karenin, who occupied one of the most important positions in the ministry of which this government office was a branch. But even if Karenin had not nominated his brother-in-law for that post, Steva Oblonsky would have obtained it through 100 other people, brothers, sisters, relations, cousins, uncles, or aunts, or another similar post with a salary of 6,000 rubles a year, which, in spite of his wife's considerable fortune, he found necessary for his affairs were in a precarious stage. Half Moscow and Petersburg were Oblonsky's friends and relations. He was born among the people who were or who became the great ones of this earth. A third of the men who occupied high positions in the state were his father's friends and had known him as a baby. Another third were on intimate terms with him, and the remainder were his good friends and acquaintances. As a result of this, the distributor of earthly goods in the shape of government posts, grants, concessions, and the like, were all good friends of his and could not pass over one who belonged to their own circle. Oblonsky had therefore no need to be particularly worried about obtaining a remunerative position. All he had to do was not to raise objections or be envious, nor to quarrel or take offense, which, being kindly by nature, he never did. It would have seemed ridiculous if anyone had told him that he would not obtain a post with a salary he required, particularly as he did not demand anything extraordinary. All he wanted was what other men of his age were getting, and he could perform the duties of such a post no worse than anyone else. Obolonsky was not only liked by those who knew him for his good and cheerful nature, and his undoubted integrity, but there was something in him, in his handsome, bright appearance, his sparkling eyes, black hair, and eyebrows, and pink and white complexion that had a physical impact on people who met him and made them feel friendly and cheered them up. "Oh, Steve Obolonsky, here he is," people almost always exclaimed with a pleased smile when they met him. And if it did occasionally happen that after talking to him, people did not feel particularly delighted, they were all as pleased as Punch to see him the next day or the day after. In the 3 years that Obolonsky had been head of one of the government departments in Moscow, he had won the affection and the respect of his colleagues, subordinates, superiors, and all who had anything to do with him. The chief qualities which had earned him this universal respect in the service were, first, his extreme indulgence with people, which was based on the fact that he was conscious of his own shortcomings. Secondly, his genuine liberalism, not the sort of liberalism she read about in the papers, but that which was in his blood and which made him treat all people the same, whatever their financial standing or social position. And thirdly, and chiefly, the complete detachment with which he regarded his work, as a result of which he was never carried away and never made mistakes. Having arrived at his office, Obolonsky, followed by a respectful commissioner who carried his portfolio, went straight to his little private office, put on his uniform, and went out into the general office. The clerks and the higher officials all rose and bowed cheerfully and respectfully. Obolonsky, as always, walked quickly to his place, shook hands with the members of the council, and sat down. He joked and chatted for just as long as was seemly, and opened the proceedings. No one knew better than Oblonsky how to draw a line between freedom, simplicity, and formality, which is so essential for present atmosphere during war. The secretary approached it with some papers in the cheerful and respectful manner, which was characteristic of everyone else in the office, and said in the familiarly liberal tone that Oblonsky had introduced. We have at last got the information from the Penza provincial office. Here it is. Would you like, sir? Oh, you've got it at last, said Oblonsky, putting on finger on the paper. Well, gentlemen, and the official business began. If they only knew, he thought, as he bowed his head with an air of importance during the hearing of the report. How like a naughty boy their president was, half an hour ago, and his eyes laughed while the report was being read. The work was to continue without interruption until 2 o'clock, when there would be an adjournment for lunch. It was not quite 2 o'clock when the large glass doors of the general office suddenly swung open and someone entered. All the members, glad of the diversion, looked round at the entrance from behind the emperor's portrait, and the diamond-shaped glass on which Peter the Great edict were engraved. But the doorkeeper immediately ejected the intruder and closed the glass doors behind him. When the business was concluded, Oblonsky got up, stretched himself, and paying tribute to the liberalism of the times, took out a cigarette in the general office and went into his private office. 2 colleagues of his, the crusty old civil servant Likitin and the court chamberlain Grinievich, followed him. Well, shall I have plenty of time to finish